Alright guys, so I just made a quick video about the books that I would first of all recommend to somebody who is getting started, wanting to build their knowledge about business and entrepreneurship. And as soon as I finished that, I realized, actually there's a few more that I probably need to add to the list. So if you read those first ones, these are also ones that you should get to next, right? So I made reference at the end of the last video to Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, and I thought, it's so important, I need to put that back on the list. If you haven't read this book yet, it's really new. By the way, this is one where I would particularly recommend that not only buy the hard copy book, but BJ does a sensational job of narrating this book as well. So the audiobook is really useful. For me, I like them both, so consider getting the audiobook too. I think, if memory serves, if you buy the Kindle edition, you might be able to get the audiobook at some sort of a bargain price. Definitely worth it anyway. Next up is The Go-Giver, and this is by Bob Burg and John David Mann. The Go-Giver is really this sort of narrative that talks about a philosophy of, first of all, offering something as an act of a philosophy, if you like, of ongoing generosity towards your customer, knowing that in the fullness of time that it will help you to become a profitable salesperson and business person. So think about The Go-Giver. I find this a really easy read. It's the sort of thing that you could read if you were, say, on a vacation somewhere and didn't want to get stuck into too much heavy-going marketing or business text. This is the sort of thing that's enjoyable and will leave you with a really positive view about what you do in business. Third of all, another sort of behavioral science book is by Jonah Berger. Now, he's written a few and he has some out just recently as well, but the one I particularly love of his is Contagious. I'm looking forward to starting his newest book as well, but Contagious is really interesting. Again, it's about the way that your customers might share your ideas so that things could effectively go viral, so to speak, in the world of business. Also a really good read. The Lean Startup, I have to include. When this book came out, I had mixed feelings, to be honest. He's not the first person, Eric Ries, to talk about this idea of ongoing learning in business operation. He makes, though, a compelling argument for the idea of always gaining insights, and this is something I firmly believe in. So in that sense, it's a really good book to read. The only thing I will say is that his business approach seems to be focused very heavily in the world of technology. So if your business is absolutely absent of technology, there's not too many these days that are, but if yours is a truly bricks and mortar business, read this knowing that he was really thinking mostly about technology businesses, in my opinion. Fifth on the list here is actually, I cheated again giving two titles. I've had the great pleasure to meet Dan Ariely. He is a genius. I mentioned before on the earlier video of Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler. Well, in that same cohort of great minds is Dan Ariely. He really talks about this remarkable way that we all operate predictably irrational. And another one of his books is The Upside of Irrationality. This will really help you get an understanding of the way that we do so much in our life that is not rational. And when you know that about all of us, it will help you speak to your customers in a more effective way. And then finally, this book here is, you might say, a little bit heavy going. I read this book, 10 years ago, and it's just been re-released for a 20th anniversary, I believe. It is a very important book. It is a little bit hard going if you're not used to reading books that sort of tend towards academics from time to time. But The Experience Economy by Joe Pine and James Gilmore, again, I've had the great pleasure of speaking to Joe Pine on a few occasions. It's a really important book because it really tells us about the way that in today's era that business is not just about the supply of a product, but it's deeply about the experience of the customer. And in fact, in the core marketing method, I've taken a great deal of influence from the experience economy, thinking about the way that you can surprise your customer with service to leave a lasting impression. So if you feel like you're ready to really sink your teeth into some meat that is of high value, I would recommend The Experience Economy, and apparently there's a brand new version of it at a re-released 20th anniversary edition. So these are 6 more books, or I should say 7 more books. They're all really going to be helpful for you if you're a business owner. So I recommend having a look at them. As I said, most of these you'll be able to get on both hard copy as well as audiobook versions. All right, guys. Now listen, a final point. I'm sure there's more. Other books that could have made it onto the list would have been Deep Work or anything by Charles Duhigg. It could have also included some of the really old classics, the Stephen Covey type books. It could have included The One Thing. There's a whole bunch of additional books that could have made this list, but I sort of chose these ones. But what would be your book? Leave a comment if there's been an outstanding business book that's really shaped the way you do business and has helped you greatly. Why don't you leave a note what the name of that book was and what you loved about it, because I want to hear from you too. All right, guys, see ya.